Thank you. We live in surreal times. It's my privilege and pleasure today to introduce a remarkable woman who has written an extraordinary book in which she argues that the only viable way to resolve the Middle East conflict is a one-state solution. I'm going to let Caroline explain why this should be so. But in order to understand the magnitude of the task she has undertaken and the difficulties her solution will encounter, you have to remind yourself first of the surreal nature of the times we live in. We are not long emerged from a 50-year Cold War, which began when the Soviet Empire swallowed Eastern Europe and the Baltic states, and ended only when the United States undertook a vast rearmament and applied enough pressure over enough time to bankrupt the communist system and force its withdrawal from the occupation. The Russian successor to that empire has just swallowed one of its lost treasures, a sovereign domain in Eastern Europe. The response of our commander-in-chief, Barack Obama, has been to wag his finger and lecture the Russian conqueror that the times of conquest have actually passed. We are all modern people now living in the 21st century, and we just don't do things that way. Not surprisingly, Obama's lecture made no impression on Putin or his apparent appetite for Crimea. Russia is, in fact, a second-rate power and could have easily been dissuaded from this adventure. But because Barack Obama is such an embarrassingly weak leader and untrustworthy ally, Putin was able to laugh in his face, mass 100,000 troops on the Ukrainian border, and prepare to swallow Ukraine itself. The leader of the free world today is a man who does not believe in the free world or in America's role as its head. In the 5 years since a Norwegian committee gave him a Nobel Prize for nothing, Obama's policies of weakness and appeasement have made the world far more dangerous place than it has been since the end of the Cold War and probably its beginning. From his first day in office, Obama made it clear that he regards America as having wronged its adversaries and its adversaries as having grievances that are justified, a view suspiciously or perilously close to Putin's own. By now, it should be apparent that America's president is a determined enabler of America's enemies and equally determined betrayer of her friends. In the 5 years since he took office, Obama has lost the war in Iraq, withdrawing the military presence that thousands of Americans gave their lives to secure while turning that benighted nation over to Iran. He has lost the war in Afghanistan by announcing his intention to lose it in advance and by forcing our troops to fight under rules of engagement that tied their hands and got them killed. He has lost Libya by conducting a unilateral, unauthorized, and illegal aggression against an American ally, murdering its leader, and turning its streets over to mobs of terrorists. In the course of these betrayals, Obama has violated every single principle he invoked as a senator to justify his subversive attacks on George Bush's war in Iraq. In the Middle East, Obama has lost Egypt, its largest and most important nation. Egypt was an American ally for 40 years before Obama intervened in its internal affairs and overthrew its president. In Egypt and throughout the Middle East, Obama and his secretaries, Clinton and Kerry, have put American power and influence behind the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamic terrorist organization with attitudes indistinguishable from Hitler's Nazi party, except the Brotherhood claims to take its direction from Allah. The Muslim Brotherhood is the spawner of al-Qaeda, the creator of Hamas, and the source of the global jihad against America and the West. Obama's support for the Brotherhood has not only cost us our Egyptian ally, but has opened the door for Putin's imperial Russia to replace us as the great power influence in the region. On top of these betrayals, Obama has systematically appeased America's most deadly enemy in the region, the terrorist regime in Iran. In particular, he has conspired to ensure that the Iranian mullahs who have sworn to wipe America and Israel from the face of the earth are successful in their drive to acquire nuclear weapons. While giving aid and comfort to America's mortal enemies, Obama has turned his back on the only democracy in the Middle East and America's most faithful and important ally. He has thrown his country's enormous weight behind Islamic radicals whose goal, stated in so many words, is to obliterate the state of Israel and push the Jews into the sea. For 66 years, the Arab states and their Palestinian proxies have conducted an unprovoked war of aggression against the Jews. The Palestinian cause is overtly and explicitly genocidal. The destruction of the state of Israel and the cleansing of the entire Arab world of its Jews. The Palestinians have advanced this cause behind the Hitlerian lie that Israel occupies Arab land. In fact, Israel was created on land that belonged to the Turkish Empire, not Arabs, for 400 years. American Indians have a greater claim on the United States than the Arabs do on the state of Israel. The Palestinian cause itself was inspired by the Islamic Nazis of the Muslim Brotherhood and was founded by the war criminal Haj Amin al-Husseini, who served Hitler in Berlin and planned his own Auschwitz for the Jews in the Middle East, which was thwarted only by Rommel's defeat at Al Alamein. Yet Obama has thrown the full weight of his presidency behind this evil. He has supported the Palestinian demands that Israel retreat to its 49 borders, which would make their genocidal goal far easier to accomplish. He has demanded that Jews stop building homes for themselves in Jewish Jerusalem. At the same time, he has turned a blind eye toward the pledge of all Palestinian leaders that no Jew will be permitted to live in any territory that Palestinians control. He has acquiesced in Iranian shipments of long-range rockets to the terrorists in Gaza so they can carry out their work of obliterating the Jews. This is the surreal context of the world we inhabit, where Israel's most important ally is an ally of her enemies, where negotiations designed to facilitate a new Holocaust are called a peace process, where an American president provides Iranian Hitlerites with the time and space to acquire nuclear weapons, and where the international dialogue about the Middle East is so constructed by the enemies of the Jews that a rational assessment of the situation has become almost impossible, and a reasonable proposal for improving it difficult to formulate, even more difficult to formulate. This is the context that our speaker has entered with just such an assessment of the problem and proposal for its solution. Caroline Glick is the new head of the Israeli Security Project of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. She has written a book, The Israeli Solution, which displays all the intellectual and moral qualities that caused the center to hire her and make us proud to call her colleague. Caroline Glick is the senior contributing editor at the Jerusalem Post and one of the most astute observers of international affairs writing today. Readers of her columns will already be familiar with her muscular intelligence and command of the facts on the ground. It is that intelligence and the courage that informs it which allows her to analyze the conflicts of a surreal situation and the policy proposals to deal with it while not being sucked into its delusions. The Israeli Solution is a remarkable book which steers readers between the Scylla of moral outrage that threatens to overwhelm every observer of Middle Eastern affairs with a modicum of moral decency, and the Charybdis of lunacy that threatens to swallow anyone who buys into the delusion that the Arabs and the Americans are talking about peace in the Middle East rather than the destruction of the Jewish state. We are thrilled and honored to have Caroline Glick as a member of our center, and we know you will be gratified and enlightened to hear what she has to say. Caroline.